Okay, it is 2 o'clock Central Time, so I'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to ATG webinar, Take Control of Company Standards, BIM Manager Suite. My name is Matt Linn, and I will be your virtual host for today. This will be a brief presentation and we'll follow up with a short Q&A session. So the main objective for today is to understand the power of the BIM Manager Suite tools, specifically how they can expedite the tedious process of family library cleanup and project cleanup. And the topics covered will be specific examples of these two workflows, family library cleanup and project cleanup. Okay, so first we'll take a look at the family library cleanup, which, as we all know, is the primary source of BIM standards within a firm. The first tool we'll take a look at is the Shared Parameter Manager. This tool manages shared parameter files and assists with batch loading parameters into projects. So we believe it is best practice to have one shared parameter file for the entire firm. Not one per office or one per team, but one shared parameter file. And Shared Parameter Manager allows us to achieve this. Second tool we'll take a look at is the Family Processor. This tool can batch, add, change, or delete materials, parameters, and shared parameters with one or many files. So, for example, you could add a shared parameter or several shared parameters to a folder of 500 families or more with a single click of a button. So this is obviously a huge time savings when implementing new shared parameters. Third tool we'll take a look at is the Schedule Parameter Resolver. So this tool changes parameters in schedules to use those in a shared parameter file without losing any schedule formatting. So as you know, if you were to manually remove a project parameter and then add a shared parameter, this takes time and removes the schedule formatting already in place. So Shared Parameter Resolver simplifies this process into one single step by replacing the parameter with the desired shared parameter. Fourth tool we'll take a look at for the family library cleanup is the Family Checker. This tool helps verify how well family files have been created according to standard best practices. This is a 40-point system that grades a family or group of families to evaluate how well it was constructed and produces a report in the form of a spreadsheet. This tool is often used as a precursor to the family processor. So for example, you could evaluate and determine what needs to take place within your family with the Family Checker, and then you could address those issues with the family processor. So let's take a look at these tools in action. Okay, first tool we'll take a look at is the Shared Parameter Manager. So again, this tool manages shared parameter files and assists with batch loading parameters into projects. So we'll come up to the ribbon, into the CTC software ribbon. And when we first open the dialog, we can see the Shared Parameter Manager. And in the lower left-hand corner, it looks very similar to the Shared Parameter dialog native within Revit. And that's by design. It is exactly the same, which is this lower left-hand corner here. Okay, also, well, first, let's go ahead and just add a new shared parameter file, which is one thing you can do. We'll call it demo SP for demo shared parameter. And then, as you know, right after you create a new shared parameter file, the first thing you have to do is create a group. In fact, you can't add parameters until you create a group. So let's do that now. Okay, so you can add groups in batch. You could type a bunch of them and say, okay. Alternatively, we like to have groups that match the naming convention native in Revit. So we have this button here, which is Add Default Groups. And when you click it, you can see it adds all the groups with the same naming convention of Revit. So now that we have all of our groups, we could say, all right, let's add some parameters to the dimension group. And what's nice about this tool is you can do it in batch. So we could say length, width, and thickness and add them all at the same time, assuming they have the same properties. So that the group, the discipline, and the type, those all look good, and say create. And just like that, we've created 3 shared parameters under the group dimensions. Another nice thing about this tool is you can come back and you can modify it. So I'm sure you know when you create a shared parameter native in Revit, if you would like to change it, the only way you can change it is basically deleting it and creating a new one. Whereas in here, you can come in and you can modify any of the group, discipline, or type and just simply save it back without creating, without deleting and creating a new one. Okay, so for this example, let's go ahead and open an existing shared parameter file that we have. So over on the left, this would be, for example, your company shared parameter file. And now let's say you have another family that has its own shared parameters files, but you'd like to incorporate it into your project using your standards. So in order to do that, let's open up, this one's called SuperDoor parameters. So these shared parameters are specific to that family or group of families. But we want to use them in our project. So we can come through, and by using these filters, we can quickly see the difference between these two shared parameter files and ultimately join them into one. So conflicts, we can see, okay, they highlight in red. There's a ton of conflicts between the two files. So what might make more sense is to filter them by what's unique. And we can quickly see there are a ton of unique on the left, and on the right we have just a few parameters here under the other category that are unique to the shared parameter file on the right. So what I'll do is I'll scroll down here to the other category in our main company shared parameter file and simply drag and drop these to that shared parameter file. And now the two files are one. We've effectively synced them. So if we go to duplicate, we can see, all right, here's the duplicate. Now we know these are duplicates because I just dragged them over, but that's just kind of a verification that we dragged them over. And now the two files are good. So now what we need to do is load the shared parameter files into the project. So again, first thing you need to do is browse to your company shared parameter file. Over here on the left, we can see all the groups have populated, all the parameters are within those groups. And the first thing we need to do is create a new selection set. So we'll call this door handle. And now we want to add parameters to that selection set of door handles. You can go in and you can grab specific parameters, or you can go grab an entire group and grab the entire group, or several groups. So in this case, I'm going to grab several groups and bring them all in. Now that they're in, you can see you can group them by group, or you can group them by parameter type, and you can see now you can see the heating load, HVAC, the force, and so forth. So for this example, I'm just going to go back to group, and then I'm going to minimize these. And obviously, mechanical and model properties don't have anything to do with a door handle. So I'm just going to pull these back out. And I'm going to explode the materials and finishes so we can see all of the shared parameters files that are available within this group. And I'm going to eliminate the ones that don't have anything to do with a door handle. Okay, so now we're down to handle finish, handle material, trim material, handset finish. So all of these have to do with the door handle selection set. Now you can see they're all highlighted in green, and down at the bottom you can see that means these are all instance parameters. Now if you want to change them to a type parameter, you can simply select them and hit type, and you can see they turn blue, and down at the bottom it indicates blue equals type parameters. Okay. For this instance, I'm just going to put them back to instance. And now you can grab them and populate them in your project. So just like in Revit, whenever you insert a parameter, you have to select a category. So we'll go ahead and select doors for this example. And we will load these parameters into the project. Okay, a little log to show you that it's complete. And then we'll come into the project, and let's come grab a door. And you can see these parameters have been added right over here as instance type. Okay, next tool we'll take a look at is the family processor. So this tool can batch add, change, or delete materials, parameters, and shared parameters with one or many files. All right, so let's go up to our ribbon here and we'll go to the CTC software. Now, the first thing you notice is this tool is grayed out. So this tool cannot be used in the Revit project or the RVT file. It can only be used in the Revit family environment, the RFA file. So let's go ahead and grab a family and go to Edit Type, which will bring us to that family, the RFA file. And you can see now the family processor button is no longer grayed out, so we can go ahead and use it. All right, so let's start by opening the properties or the parameters of this family and take a look and evaluate how good it is right now. Okay, so we have a panel material parameter, and you can see that's a shared parameter, which is good. And you can see the type of parameter is a text. Ideally, that would be better as a material type parameter. So let's address that. Let's take a look at this one. It is a shared parameter, that's good. It is already material, that's good. So let's go in and let's take a look at the materials themselves. Okay, so when we open up the material browser, we can see we have analytical floor surface, analytical slab surface, analytical wall surface. We have a lot that do with masses and lights. We have some for phases, a lot of materials that really have nothing to do with the door, okay? So let's address some of these items in this family. Let's clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to come back to the CTC software ribbon into the family processor tool. And it opens up this dialog. And you can see there are several tabs along the top. There's family level processing, lookup tables, change materials, change parameters, processing orders, select families to begin, and last log. And within each of these tabs, there are, some of them have more tabs. So there's a lot of options in here to modify and lean up your family files. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hit new settings, because like with many of the CTC tools, a lot of them remember the settings from last time you used it. So in this case, I'm just going to say new settings to set it back to the default. Okay, you can set the Omni class, you can see. For now, I'm just going to leave those and say no change. You can change some of the family settings like the work plane based or always vertical. These, again, I'm going to leave these alone for now. Here's a good option. When opening family files, turn on auditing. This is a good one pretty much to use every time. If you're going to go through the process of, updating these families, you may as well audit them in the process. We'll also sort the parameters by name within the groups. Okay, now let's take a look at this change materials tab. Now this is one, as mentioned, some of the tabs have tabs under the tabs. So within the change materials, we can delete materials, we can add materials, or we can change materials. So as we already saw, this has a ton of materials that have nothing to do with the door. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete all of them, and then I'm going to be very selective by adding some of them back in. So we'll add default back in, exterior finish, glass, laminate, and door handles. Okay, that's fine. You can also add materials. You would just come up here, type in a name, and add it. I'm not going to do that now, but it's simple to do. You can change materials. If you want to take a material and change it, change some of its properties, you can do it in this dialog here. All right, now let's take a look at this next tab, which is change parameters. You can see it has several parameters. Several tabs underneath the main tab, which are delete parameters, add shared parameters, add family parameters, replace with shared parameters, and parameters to change. So let's start with this delete parameters, and let's go in and let's find that, let's see, the panel material, and let's delete this one. Because as we already saw, this is a family material, a family parameter with a text type, and it'd be ideal to have a shared parameter that is a material type. So we'll come up to this add shared parameter tab. First thing we want to do is verify that our shared parameter file is mapped, which it is up here. And then underneath, you can see all the parameters that are included with the shared parameter file. Now, there are a ton in here. So instead of scrolling through, I'm just going to start typing panel material. And there, it popped up right there, and I'm going to add this. So we effectively deleted panel material over here, and then we're adding it back as a shared parameter with a material type. Okay, you could also add family parameters. Simply type a name, give it the properties, and add it right in. We won't do that at this point. Okay, and then you can replace with shared parameters. So I'm going to grab a few parameters and pull them in, and you can see what it does. So here we have frame depth, frame finish, frame thickness, handle height, and handle material. So it goes and looks in your shared parameter file and sees if there's any with the same name. In this case, all of them have a shared parameter with the exact same name. So it'll go ahead and replace those automatically. Now, if it did not have one with the same name, that's fine. You could come in here and select any of them from the list. Okay, next we have our parameters to change. So I'm just going to grab a couple of these that are currently type parameters, and you can see they're currently set to type. You can come in and change and make them instance if you want, for example. So we'll change both of these to instance parameters. And then we jump to the processing order tab. So coming back here, you remember we replaced with shared parameters, and then we changed that same parameter. So had we changed it and then replaced it, it wouldn't have made any sense. You have to go in that order. But this is the default order, so you can change it if you want. Okay. So now let's look at select families and begin. Okay, you have a lot of options here. First, you can browse to the folder that you want to do. So in the case is, if you're going to do an entire library, you could go through all the settings and get it all set up, and then you could run it, as mentioned previously, on 500 or more families. However big your library is, you can run it overnight while you're at home, and it'll go through and update all the families with these settings. You could save it to a new file. You could basically save an alternate parent folder, which would copy over all the files and have like a new one in an archive, for example. You could create type catalogs if you want. But for this example, let's just run it on this one family only to see the process. So you hit begin processing, and here's just kind of a summary of everything we've done. If you remember, we said we wanted to audit all the families when we turned them on or open them. We're going to delete a bunch of materials because a lot of them have nothing to do with the door. We're going to delete the panel material because it was a text type parameter, and we're going to replace it with a shared parameter, which is a material type parameter. Okay, we're also going to replace all these with parameters from the shared parameter file. And then we're going to change these from type to instance parameters. Okay, so we'll sit here and run it. So it's processing all these changes for this family, and then it gives you a log, which is the final tab of the dialog here. So thus far, we've told the family processor what to do, and it says, okay, it's ready to do all of these things. It hasn't actually completed it yet until we go and close the dialog. So you can come through and now you hit the X and you say commit changes to family document, and this is where you can say yes. So now if we go back and look at some of our parameters, you can see frame finish and panel finish both say default after them now. That's because we changed them from type to instance. Instance indicates, or the default indicates an instance parameter. If we come in here, we can see this has been revised to a material type parameter, which is good. If we come in here, let's go ahead and look at the material browser, and you can see the materials themselves have been laned up. We got rid of all those materials that make no sense being part of a door family. Okay. So again, we went through all the settings and ran that on one family. So you might be thinking, well, that kind of took a while, and it did, especially if you're starting from scratch for one family. However, if you're running for a library of 500 families, then that's a huge time saver. Okay, next we'll take a look at the schedule parameter resolver. So this tool changes parameters in schedules to use those in a shared parameter file without losing any schedule formatting. Okay, so first thing let's do, let's grab this door, for example, and let's go into the family itself and evaluate it real quick. Let's take a look at some of the parameters. Actually, first, let's jump over and let's verify the shared parameter file is correct. Yeah, that's the right file. Okay, so we're going to come back to the parameters again and take a look at the health of this specific family. So if we look at frame finish, we can see this is a shared parameter. That's good. If we look at the frame material, that is also a shared parameter, also good. Okay, panel finish, same thing. Okay, overall, this door looks like it's set up pretty good. It has material type parameters and they're all shared, all good things for the schedule in company standards as well. So now let's go ahead and open our door schedule to see how it looks here. Now, we can see automatically, this is obviously not scheduling correctly. The door material, finish, the frame material and finish, none of those are scheduling properly. Now, we already saw that the door looks good, so it must be an issue with the schedule. And that's where this tool comes in, the schedule parameter resolver. So we'll come into this tool. And first thing you want to do is verify the correct shared parameter file is mapped, which it is. And then you open up a schedule. So in this case, what we're concerned with is the door schedule. Okay, again, these are the 4 fields that we're concerned with, the material, finish for both frame and door. So you come over here and you could say, all right, I want this panel material as reflected in the schedule to be updated with a shared parameter from the shared parameter file. Okay, so you could come over here and say, all right, here's all the parameters available to me from the shared parameter file, which would take forever because there's a ton in this case. So I'm just going to start typing. And if you start typing, it'll look for that specific one. So you can see if I type frame material, try that again. If I type frame material, it will instantly pop in. Same thing with frame finish. Okay. So I'm effectively remapping all those fields with shared parameters. I'll say okay. Okay, and now you can see the schedule is correctly scheduling those elements. Okay, it's looking for those shared parameter and scheduling appropriately. Okay, next we'll take a look at the tool Family Checker. So this tool helps verify how well family files have been created according to standard best practices. Okay, so let's zoom in here. Now, if we grab this door, actually, let's just come up to the CTC software ribbon. And if we come over here to the Family Checker, we can see it is, in fact, available to us in the RVT, in the Revit project environment. So if we open it up, okay, now we can see we have some more options. We can run the Family Checker on multiple family files. However, you can see current family file is grayed out. And that's because we're in the Revit project. If it said current family file, it wouldn't know which one you're talking about because you're not in a family file. Okay, so in this case, you could browse to a folder and go ahead and run the checker on, again, an entire library, which is what a lot of people do. But for this instance, let's just run it on one family. So I'm going to open the family itself. So we're currently in the Revit family environment, the RFA file, and I'm going to open the Family Checker again. Okay, now we can still run it on multiple family files. We can still go browse to a library or a folder and run it on all those families, or we have the option of running it on the current family file only. Okay, so for this instance, that's what we'll do. Okay, we have some options up here. You can put your initials in, which I'll put mine in right now. Okay, and you want to map your shared parameter file, which we've done here. And for those of you who download content from Autodesk Seek, which I imagine a lot of you do, this shared parameter is automatically mapped for those seek families as well. Okay. Actually, let's go back into options. And then we have some other options. So you can look at the valid groups and say, okay, these parameters, it's acceptable for them to be in the parameter type of comment. Okay. Same thing with parameter groups. You could say, it's acceptable for these parameters to be in the materials and finishes group. That's fine. If you want, you can move them around to whatever group or type you want. Okay. There's also a naming rule that the family checker can check for. So you can say, as part of our company, we will allow control or control underscore, but we do not want CFM or parentheses or so forth. So in here, you can go through and specify what you do or do not accept as far as your standard nomenclature. Okay, so after that, you'll come in and you'll say, check family. In this case, we're just running it on this single file. So as mentioned, you can run this on an entire folder. You can run it on your entire library. And in fact, a lot of people do. They'll run it on an entire library and they'll get a report and say, okay, I'm noticing a trend here. All of our families have a deficiency in this area. Okay, so then you can go to the family processor, which we previously saw, and you can address whatever issue that is, or several issues, whatever they are, and you can address them with the entire library overnight while you're at home. Okay, so this one is still running. Looks like my computer froze up for a second. Here we go. Okay, so when it's done, it will spit out a spreadsheet similar to Excel. Now this is not Excel, but it's similar. It's a spreadsheet. It'll give you the family type, which is a model, the family category, which is a door. It gives you a name, which includes your initials and the date, and then it gives you an executive summary up here, which is, you know, the overall health of your family. Now, if you scroll down a bit, it gives you a little tutorial on how to read the report. You have a criteria compliancy status. You have a reference section of the Revit model, a QA criteria, and so forth. Okay, so this is common to every report. It just gives you a little tidbit on how to read it. So if we come down a little bit further, we can see the balancing performance and design complexity is deemed acceptable in this family. The element visibility, if we come over here, you can get a little bit more information on what acceptable means. The element visibility is optimal. Now down here, you can see the Autodesk approved parameter usage. It says action required. And if we come over here to the right, you can see it says none of the main identity parameters are present or filled. Missing empty parameter, manufacturer. So at this point, I could say, all right, I'm going to go into this family and add that manufacturer. Or I could say, you know what, it's really not that important to me, and you can just leave it alone. So this family checker is exactly what it sounds like. It's just giving you red flags that you can either, you know, act on, or you could say, it's not that important to me, and just let it go. Again, as mentioned, this is often run as a precursor to the family processor. You can figure out where your families need attention, and then you can give them that attention with the family processor. Okay, now that we have reviewed family library cleanup, let's look at how we can effectively address project cleanup as well. Okay, so the first tool we'll take a look at is the project cleaner. This tool deletes selected views, sheets, and Revit links to prepare a project to send off to contractors or link into Revit. So this has a similar function of the purge command that is native to Revit, but it gives you a much higher level of control and streamlines the process for faster results. Next, we have the dimension checker. So this tool finds dimensions whose text do not show dimensionally accurate values. So you may or may not know about this trick, but it is in fact possible to override a dimension in Revit to a non-accurate value. Obviously, this is not a good habit for construction documents, so this tool quickly and simply monitors this behavior. Third tool we'll take a look at is the Import and Link Manager. So this tool assists with locating and managing files that have been imported or linked into the current project. So as you already know, Revit has a link manager built into the product, but it does not have any way to track imports. So this tool combines both links and imports into one single dialog. In addition, this tool will allow you to modify an AutoCAD import to an AutoCAD link. So in general, we feel links are better than imports for Revit file maintenance. Speaking of file maintenance, is there anything worse than a coworker importing an AutoCAD file into your Revit project and exploding it? Well, fortunately, our last tool, Type Swapper, can address this very issue. So Type Swapper, this tool makes it easy to change the type or style used for text, dimensions, and line elements. Family elements can also be swapped. So this is one of my favorite tools. It very easily finds the families with a 1 at the end because it was copied from another project and gets rid of all the unnecessary duplication of families and textiles. As mentioned, it can also clean up a file when someone explodes an AutoCAD file in the Revit project. Okay, first tool we'll take a look at is the Project Cleaner. So again, this tool deletes selected views, sheets, and Revit links to prepare a project to send off to contractors or link into Revit. So we'll come up here, and you can see there are several tabs at the top: views, view templates, filters, and you can simply just come in and start checking what you want to get rid of. So you could say, I want to get rid of the entire sheet A 2.2. Or you could say, I just want to get rid of that building section. Or you could say, I want to get rid of all the views. That's a possibility. Okay, same thing with view templates. And you can see these are separated out by view templates that are in use and unused. So you can come through and select any of these that you'd like to get rid of. Filters, same process. Okay, you can get rid of sheets. So grab just a couple here. Same thing with links, and it will give you a count. You can get rid of those. Same thing with imports, which also gives you a count. You can see we got 5 of those. We got 2 of those. You can get rid of all of these at once if you want. And images. You can come through and say, I'd like to purge out these images. Okay, and there's also a purge button, which will take you directly to the native purge button in Revit. And then you can just simply come here and say remove. Now, a lot of people come here and they select everything and just get rid of everything before they send it off to a consultant or a contractor. Okay, again, it can take you directly here, and you can use the native Revit purge command if you'd like as well. Okay, next tool we'll take a look at is the dim checker. So this tool finds dimensions whose text do not show dimensionally accurate values. All right, so the first thing we'll do, I'm going to open my dimension plan over here, and then I'll open the dim checker tool. Okay, so when you open it, you can see it's got several options over here in the left margin. You can look for dimensions whose actual value or have been replaced with text. You can look for text fields when you add text above, below, right, or left. So let's go ahead and add some of these, and we'll go ahead and say search. So by doing this, which is use actual value or replace with text, it shows us all the text dimensions, all the dimensions that are available in the project. Now, in my case, I only have one dimension plan, so I don't have a ton, but this is in fact all the dimensions in the project. Now you can see it shows you any that have been replaced with text. It shows it there if they've been changed with text or added text below or to the right or above or below. It shows you all of them. So let's lean this up and let's look at only the dimensions that have text fields above or below, and it shows you where those are. Okay, that may or may not be helpful to you. You could say, all right, let's undo that and let's only find the text, or the dimensions that have been replaced with text. And just like that, you can see we have a few dimensions that have been overridden with inaccurate values, and then we have one that says BIF. Okay, we're okay with verifying fields. So let's just come down with this exclude button, and we'll exclude it. Now, in my case, I only had one, so it wasn't that big a deal, but you may have had, a bunch where you could effectively filter those out. And then you're just left with any dimension that's been overridden with text with an inaccurate value, like in this case, which is obviously a huge no-no in construction documents. So let's show, and this will take us to the view that has this dimension. If that was enough, you can hit select, which will actually grab the dimension string itself. Okay, so from here, you can say, all right, I'm gonna go into this dimension string, and I'm just gonna say use actual value. And then it gets rid of that override. Same thing with this, we'll just say use actual value. Okay, and now we've cleaned up this file with regard to dimensions. All right, the next tool we'll take a look at is the Import and Link Manager. So again, this tool assists with locating and managing files that have been imported or linked into the current project. So we'll come up to the Import and Link Manager in the ribbon. And you can see this has several tabs along the top. It has all links, all imports, Revit links, and CAD links. Okay, so you can quickly identify all these things in your project. This is all of them in one. Or you could say, just show me the links. You could say, just show me the imports. Okay, I'm going to drag this out. Now, if we look at this, you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 imports, DWG imports called Hotel Lobby Floor Plan. And you can see one of them is pinned. You can also see the pin over on the right. And by the way, you can come in here and you can pin and unpin them from this dialog as well. But most likely, one was probably inserted into a view, and then that view is probably copied with detail, which copied those imports. Well, let's kind of purge this out, and I'm just going to remove those like that. Same thing with this one. One's pinned, one not. That was probably copied with detail. Okay, let's take a look at Revit links. In this case, we don't have any. That's fine. We got a couple CAD links in here. They're both pinned. That's good. Okay, another nice thing you can do with the Import and Link Manager is you can grab and import a DWG, and you can switch it to a DWG link, which most people prefer, including me. So you could say swap reload from. You could browse to your Windows Explorer and browse to the correct file. We'll say this one, Hotel Lobby Plan link, and say open. And that brings us to this dialog. Now this dialog is very similar to the dialog that comes native in Revit. You can give it an insertion where you say import or link, and you could say the placement, you could do center to center, you could do change the colors or the layers, basically all the options you have native in Revit. But here's the big one. I can say I want this to be a link as opposed to an import. Okay, that's something you definitely cannot do native in Revit. And then we'll say okay, and you can see it'll be removed from our import tab, and it'll be added to the CAD link tab right here. Okay, the final tool we'll take a look at today is the type swapper. So this tool makes it easy to change the type or style used for text, dimensions, and line elements. Family elements can also be swapped. So let's go up and take a look at this one. If we come to the ribbon and then to type swapper. Okay, and you can see in this one we have several tabs across the top. We have duplicate families, dimension styles, text types, line styles, fill patterns, and materials. Okay, so it goes and it checks all of these options, and you can see here we have baluster round 1 and baluster round. Same thing with view title and view title 1. So let's go ahead and search these in the project browser. Okay, now these have been populated, and we can see over in the project browser, we have a view title, we have a view title 1. We have a baluster round and a baluster round 1. So let's come back to our type swapper tool. Okay, now we can come here and we could say, I want to swap out the ones that say view title 1 or baluster round 1. I want to swap them for the original families, and I want to delete the duplicate families. Okay, right here, check that. So I'm going to say swap, and it gets rid of the duplicate family, and it combines the added one into the original one. It gives you a little status log here. Okay, now let's jump to the dimension styles. Okay, we can see we have 330 seconds aerial. Here we have 330 seconds aerial, line leader, text above. Okay, to me, those are pretty much the same thing. So I'm going to swap this one for the 330 seconds aerial, swap, and then I'm going to come back and then delete it. Okay, same process with all these. So let's take a look at text types. We have a text called 16th inch. We also have one called 16th inch elect. And you can see the 16th inch elect has 8 instances of that, a count of 8. So let's change those. I'm going to swap these to 16th inch. And you can see the count of 8 and 35 should update to, there we go, 0 and 43. And now I'm just going to come back and delete that additional text. Okay, same thing with line styles. We have elect here. That doesn't really tell me anything with regard to a line style. So I'm going to change these to just lines for now. So I'll say swap. And then I'll come back and simply delete the elect line style. Okay, same process with fill patterns. Same process with materials. You get the idea. You can come in and you can swap them for anything else and then go back and delete them. It's a really quick and easy way to clean up a messy project. Okay, so that concludes the webinar, Take Control of Company Standards. As you can see, this is an extremely powerful set of tools for both project cleanup as well as family library cleanup. Okay, so I see we do have a chat that popped in from Chad. Is there any way in the DIM checker to see which dimension style is used, in particular looking at rounding values? So for that, Chad, I would consider looking at the type swapper to find those that you want to and replace them with what you're looking for. So in DIM checker, by the name, it's simply checking the values themselves. It doesn't actually change them for anything. So I hope that helps. If you'd like a one-on-one conversation, we would welcome that opportunity. You could either contact me or you could contact any of the ATG sales consultants, and we could discuss that with you. Do we have any other questions for today's webinar? Okay, with that, I thank you all for your time. That will conclude today's webinar. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.